Today we're going to continue our series on critiquing data visualizations, this time looking at a bar chart. In the past, when we've talked about critiquing data visualizations, we've walked through both how I approach it in my mind, thinking through this, and then how to translate that into what I might say to another person in concrete terms to help them refine the data visualization. As we continue to add ideas about what it is that we need to address in each data visualization, this would become very, very long because I'd essentially be stating the same thing twice. So from now on, I'm just going to give you my thoughts as I look at a data visualization and process it in terms of the design criteria that we have. And then I'm trusting that you can take those and translate them into what might be said to a human being in order to help them out and give them specifics about what's working and what's not. So with that, let's look at this bar chart, and then I'll just walk you through what I'm thinking when I see it. So as always, I'm sort of asking myself, what's the primary purpose? What is it that this design should be enabling? It's a bar chart, so we're comparing magnitude. So what this bar chart should do is allow me to easily and quickly compare magnitudes of different things. To some extent, it does allow me to compare magnitudes. There are different bars. I can see their size. I can see which ones are bigger and which ones are smaller. It doesn't really let me do it super easily, and we can talk about why that is. I think that comes down to many of the other design choices. And so, yes, this does at the most basic accomplish what it's supposed to be doing, but it could be so much better if one were to just apply the design principles that we have. So first, let's just start with the basics. We have 4 basic design principles: consistency, contrast, proximity, and alignment. And let's see where this works and where it doesn't. I think consistency is actually pretty good here. The only thing that's noticeably different in terms of presentation is this baseline, which maybe is fair that we want to know where the 0 is, and then also the title. Everything else has the same font size and font. And so I think that's pretty good. Our attention is not drawn away to needless things that have contrast that we don't necessarily need to see. There's also consistency between the color scheme. We have sort of this monocolor scheme or monochrome scheme where we have shades of blue. However, I think that's a place where this actually fails. It's a little hard to tell which blue is which looking down here. One of them doesn't even really have a label, but it also doesn't appear here, so I think that's just an error in using Excel. If it were me, I would actually increase the contrast between the series so it's a little bit easier to tell which is which. This is a case where I think direct labeling wouldn't work. I don't need every single one of these dark bars to have from desktop labeled on it. But because of that, I want it to be abundantly clear which is from desktop, which is from mobile, and which is from tablet. So I would increase the contrast on these bars if it were me. That leads to proximity. I did say that I don't think we need to directly label each one of these bars, but I do think proximity can be improved. And what I would do is just on the first bars that we encounter, label them directly. So I would put from desktop on this bar or next to it, from mobile on this one, and from tablet on this one. And then I would see that they go with all the rest without me needing to go back and forth. So that's how I would approach it. I'd at least try that and see if I like it. I think that's really the only major improvement I can see for proximity. When I think about alignment, I think there's also a number of issues that could be improved. For one, from desktop, from mobile, from tablet, if we're going to keep this legend up here, we have an alignment problem because all of these are on one line except from desktop, and it looks funny to me. Something else is that most of what we're reading is the times, but the times are oriented like this, which makes me tilt my head like this. And I'm getting old enough that maybe that's painful and it's hard and I don't know. So what I would do is I would just turn this 90 degrees so that the label for each time slot reads left to right the way that we expect, and then I can go top to bottom when I read down a horizontal set of bar charts. Then I could make each one of these divisions far enough apart along this axis that I can still have them horizontal as well. So I think just by changing this by 90 degrees, I can improve some of the alignment issues and make the chart a little bit easier to read. It would also mean that the direct labeling from desktop here could run the same direction as the bar, but then still be read left to right. So that would improve things. All right, then we can move on to specifics for bar charts. Some of these we've already covered. I think direct labeling is good. I think that running bars horizontally is probably always the correct choice unless there's a compelling reason to make them run vertically. I think that the separation between these is actually okay, and so I'm not going to complain about that too much. But one thing that I think is kind of a problem is that we have one set of bars that's much bigger than the other set of bars, and it actually makes it a little hard to see the patterns. Because of this, it makes it look like these bars are separated by a lot of empty space, because they are. And it makes it a little bit harder to see. So instead, what I would actually do in this chart is split it into 3 separate charts. One that plots the from desktop, one that plots the from mobile, and one that plots the from tablet. Then each could have their own title. We wouldn't need this legend anymore. And then I could have the spacing between the bars such that all the bars feel nestled nice and snug next to each other with a more modest white space between them. I think that would improve the legibility of this particular plot. If I'm thinking about other things that we could do, potentially the only thing would be to make a better title. And there, again, I would think about making a declaration. Something like, most of our sales come from desktop computers in the middle of the day. That's an assertion that this evidence would support, and then by making those 3 plots that are all running with horizontal bars and better alignment and labeling, I think it would make the point easier to understand and the comparison easier to make. That would improve the design and allow us to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish better, communication with our reader. All right, so that's me looking at this bar chart and just thinking through a little bit how I might improve the design. One thing to keep in mind is that this is just one critique. And in the real world, what I would do is offer this critique either to myself or to another person. Hopefully it would become refined, and then we could look at it again and go through that over and over again until we think we've reached the point of diminishing returns where we already have a design that works well, and we don't need to spend the time to improve it for just very small marginal improvements. But this design is not there yet. Anyway, that's our critique for bar charts, now that we have some design criteria specific to bar charts, and I look forward to seeing you again for the next in this series on how to critique charts.